close up as we do. And again, bats never fail to amaze me. I've been, dare I say it, studying bats for over 20 years now. And every single year goes by, there's something new that I learn. So I feel really privileged and I really want to make sure I can share this experience with you all. Secondly, while this is Endangered Species Day, I also want to take a lot of time to recognize all the people involved in the work that we do. Now, you can look at this as a half glass half full or glass half empty approach. I think Endangered Species Day is a day to celebrate our successes and also what is possible. We have phenomenal staff at BCI, we have phenomenal partners and people on the ground really helping us. It is amazing what we can achieve and actually over a relatively short time. And this photo was taken recently from one of our projects in Kenya. All of these people are doing this because they have a passion about conservation and they're learning more about bats and getting as hooked on them as we are. And that's really making a difference. Um, Before I actually get into the main content, I also want to take a moment to recognize everyone here. You're obviously interested in bats and interested in learning more about them. We as BCI can do this work in a bubble and do a small amount of progress. But actually, one of the biggest ways I think we can benefit bats is just talking about them, spreading the word and how beneficial they are, and dispelling some of these myths about them. So, yeah, thank you very much for this and yeah, allowing me to talk about bats as well. Just a really small bit about me. Have been studying bats for over 20 years now. I um, started actually started late compared to a lot of bat people. I didn't start working on bats until I was in my 20s. Did my PhD in the UK, but then I spent most of my career working in Asia before coming over to the US. I feel working at BCI, I'm one of the have one of the luckiest jobs I think in the world. That while we are working with endangered species, I get to work all over the world with some of the most amazing people you can think of. I don't really get into the field that much anymore, to be honest. I have a great team behind me working on this, but my main role is identifying the main threats to bats and where BCI as an organization can really make the greatest impact with our partners on the ground. I am obsessed with acoustics, so if anyone has any acoustic questions at the end, I'm all for that. This is the one downbeat slide of the whole presentation, I promise. But this really does cement why we're here and why this work is needed. I think everyone knows that biodiversity is in crisis. There is continual biodiversity decline as we reshape ecosystems out of their natural order. Now, the last bat to go extinct was in 2009, and that was the Christmas Island pipistrelle. I've really made it my goal during the whole tenure of my time at BCI that this does not happen on our watch. And we are actively working with partners to make sure that doesn't happen. So this is really the need. For those interested, a bit of background about how BCI is split up. So I manage the Endangered Species Interventions Program, but we also have a huge team of dedicated staff working on other aspects as well. So we have protecting and restoring landscapes, conducting high priority research, and inspire through experience. And I really couldn't do any of this work without the rest of the organization. And like, a big shout out to Karen and Rachel as well for even setting all of this stuff up. I'm not great with a lot of this technology, so I'm going to have to do it on my own. I'd be interested before this presentation, how many countries people thought BCI works in. We did a little bit of a back of the envelope calculation of projects that we are actively leading. We are partnering through capacity or partnering through other mechanisms of support. We have now hit 20 countries that we're really sort of participating in. And realistically, we're only limited by our sort of financial and capacity constraints. There's obviously more work to be done, but one of the things that we really want to do is make sure that we are not the only people doing this. We help support all the other existing networks out there who are doing such a fantastic job. We really just identify where we as an organization can make the greatest difference and support others where needed. It may not be surprising to most people that the tropics, being one of the height of biodiversity, is really where a lot of our work um, focuses on. The US, especially Canada, especially because of white nose, is a sort of special area for us as well because of such high population declines. Now, it's impossible to thank everyone at BCI. There's just too big a team, but this is really a representation of showing all of the people who are working within the endangered species team. Now, these are full-time members of staff and also some of our critical partners as well. Um, I'm really proud of the team that we have, and especially the global sort of reach that we have now as well. And I think that's really making a difference in the impact that we make as an organization. Now, as you might have guessed by how many countries we're working in, we're doing a lot, and I've realistically only got 30 to 35 minutes to talk about this work. So I'm going to rattle through a lot of these just to give you really an overview of what we're doing, but with a real positive spin on it, because we can get pretty tunnel visioned in the work that we're doing. We are dedicated in saving these bats. So we don't probably spend as much time as we should at celebrating the successes of it. Within North America, two projects I want to highlight. And again, I'm really just cherry picking some of the biggest projects right now. Our agave restoration project that spans the US and Mexico, and the Florida Bonsai Bat project, which we as an organization really focused on in Miami. Now, Florida Bonsai Bat, for all the Florida Bonsai Bat fans out there, in Miami, one of the greatest risks to this species is roosting habitat. They really like the old Spanish tiles because a lot of the big trees that they used to roost in have either been cut down or just blown over during the hurricanes. They have been in more recognizable bat boxes in the past, but through work that Melky and Stephanie have been leading from BCI, we've designed this rocket box, which is adapting an existing design, but making sure that it has enough airflow to make sure we're not creating ecological death traps for bats. With changing temperatures, more extreme sort of summers, we can inadvertently, if we're not careful, create bat boxes that would get too hot for bats. And then we're essentially creating this habitat they can no longer use. These bat boxes have been tested, they're hurricane proof and that has enough air circulation and there's like two chambers inside that bats can move around. These bats love them. Our our shortest time period is less than a week. We installed one of these bat boxes and a Florida Bonsai Bat just turned up in it. And a lot of the roofing sites in Miami were disappearing as people were having to just naturally repair their roofs. But through the monitoring and continued monitoring that we're doing, we now have created the largest known Florida Bonsai Bat population across the entire range through these bat boxes. And I think even this 170 is an old number now. We are continuing to do research. Just a few months ago, we were sticking GPS tags to these bats' backs so we can actually see where they're flying to protect the foraging habitat as well. But some really dedicated time, research that I can talk about any of these projects and take over an hour, but the amount of work that goes behind all of this to make sure that we set this up for success is huge. So it's a real celebration of the people working on that, especially with Zoom Miami as well. It's been a great collaboration and the bats responding to that as well. The agave restoration program is one of the first projects that I started when I joined BCI, and this has been such a phenomenal success to the point where, as of today, this is hot off the press. The US Fish and Wildlife Service has recognized this achievement, and we have just won the Species Recovery Champions for the Southwest region. This is a huge win for the team as it really recognizes the critical work they're doing in protecting we're protecting the roosting habitat with our cave protection plan and also the foraging habitat with the agave restoration initiative. And it always amazes me that this is what their natural landscape should look like across the US Southwest, but this is often what we're coming against. So this is what we're going from this to this type of habitat. It's a huge win, and the community outreach, especially with the ejidos in Mexico, has been really inspiring, I think is the best way to put this, and just how much of a difference can be made across all this landscape. Right, next one. Latin America and the Caribbean. Sadly, there are too many projects here for me to talk about every single one of them, and I apologize to the Colombians on the call. I was actually just in Bogota a few weeks ago celebrating the work that we're doing over there, but today I just want to concentrate on two little project, well, two of the projects. One in Jamaica, where we're protecting two critically endangered bats. The first one at Stony Hill Cave, which is the Jamaican flower bat. This is the last known maternity roost for this bat. It was thought to be extinct for over 20 years before NEPA, which is the government agency responsible for the environment, rediscovered it. Active research carried out by other colleagues has found that they will use other caves, but to our knowledge, this is the only known maternity roost. Now, development was threatening this cave. Fortunately, the landowner really values the environment and sold us that parcel of land, which we gave to the Jamaican government to hold in perpetuity. So this site is now protected, and we're really working on conservation measures to ensure the habitat in this parcel of land is optimum for this species of bat. The other cave which we have really been focusing on is St. Clair Cave in Jamaica, and get this other video to. This cave is just exceptional. It has over 2 million bats in it of at least 10 different species, including the critically endangered Jamaican funnel-eared bat. Now, feral cats have been the major issue to the bats in this cave, and we've been working on ways to identify an effective way to basically just prevent the cats getting to the bats. We've been working with the landowner and especially the communities who have really been the enabling condition for us in making sure that we can get this done. So what we're doing is building a predator-proof fence around the cave. And this cave is at least a 40-minute hike throughout rainforest, pretty rugged terrain. The local community have been hurling bags of cement, sand, water, metal pipes, chain fencing to the site. And this is the only reason this project has been possible. And this is an effective way of excluding the cats from the cave and letting the bats escape without any harm to them. And I'll get the next slide to get up and working. These bats are just phenomenal to look at close up. The bat on the left is Pteronotus parnelli. The bat on the right is Mormoops, which is the ghost-faced bat. Its eyes have kind of receded into its ear. It's a really weird bat. Flies very, very fast. Both of these are insectivorous bats, but Mormoops, when it flies and it hits this speed, it has this little buzz along its wing. You can always tell if they're flying above because it's just like this as they fly over you. Next month, we are launching a bat exhibition at the Natural History Museum of Jamaica. That will be there for at least 6 months. So if anyone does travel to Jamaica or is from Jamaica, I encourage you from June 18th, that will be up installed, and you can learn more about the bats of Jamaica and the work that we're doing there. But protecting these two caves is really the only thing saving these, not these two bats, but the two critically endangered bats from extinction. And again, we wouldn't be able to do this without partner support and the local communities there. Now, Brazil is really a project in progress, but I wanted to just really recognize the work that Jennifer Barros has been doing, not only in surveying, she surveyed over 40 caves now in less than a couple of years. We have 70 priority caves we need to resurvey and come up with a management plan for each one. But her work hasn't only just involved surveys, it's involved liaising with local partners, landowners, government authorities, and really figuring out how we can make the biggest impact. But part of her work has been this is a Nautilus species on the left. These are really, really small bats, really cute. Also very rare. She's been finding new cave sites where these bats haven't been recorded before. And the bat on the right is Vampirum spectrum. This is it's not a vampire bat despite its Latin name. It is carnivorous. It really likes eating birds and other bats if you give it a chance. But she found this in a region of Brazil where it wasn't thought to have been. So this is a really big result for us. And also one of the only like really close-up images we have of this bat in flight. So this bat is a really impressive bat when it's in flight. And she's also helping us really work with communities and let them know the diversity and beauty of bats by getting all these portrait shots of the bats that she's catching, including this one on the right, which I just find phenomenal to look at. It's just a big floofball. Right, Africa. Now, again, I can't talk about every single project here, but I just really want to talk about some of our successes. The first one being in Rwanda. Now, this story is a little bit old, but I still just love this bat because this is Hill's horseshoe bat, one of the Rhinolophus bats. This bat, despite being insectivorous, is more closely related to flying foxes than it is other insectivorous bats we see, say, in North America. This bat was thought to be extinct. It hadn't been seen in over 40 years, which makes it a really tricky thing for conservation management because you can think it's extinct, but you don't know it's extinct, which really starts to figure out how we balance conservation management plans, especially for the national park. So we worked with collaborators from Rwanda, from Kenya, from DRC, and our team based in the US to really do a as conclusive study as we could of the national park. And I mean, there's part luck in here, but we were really sort of honing in on the bat and working with the rangers as well before we even arrived. And we caught it. And one thing I really love about this project is that it got really national attention. Even Stephen Colbert admittedly made fun of the bat, but it was great for highlighting the bats and just giving bats a better sort of image in the press, even if he did describe it as a little bit ugly. But now the national park knows it exists and they can start, and we're actively working with them and other parks across the country to work on management and seeing if other rare bats are elsewhere as well. Now, for those of you who tune in to sort of our webinars or other posts, you'll probably have heard about Kenya already. It was part of our fall appeal last year. This is one of my favorite projects. I'm going to admit that because the speed in which we are able to recover the land around this cave is really quite breathtaking. It really inspires me for what we do and just how we can make an impact. Hildegard's tombak is endangered. Its range is technically in Kenya and Tanzania, but it hasn't been seen in Tanzania in years. That's kind of the next phase of this project. It was historically known in a large number of caves along the coast, which have slowly been crumbling away through landscapes, land development, erosion, all the things that really destroy these habitat. There are two really critical caves that need to be protected. One where I was on a trip to Kenya and we thought this land was safe until we found out, unfortunately, the landowner passed away and his land was getting divided off and sold to developers. Now, for context, the cave is just at the bottom right of your screen. So you can see how close this development is already getting to this cave. Now, we have been exceptionally lucky. Our membership appeal has been phenomenal and some of our donors as well, allowing us to swoop in and having the money available to purchase this parcel of land. Land purchase is usually the last resort for us. We don't like doing it. We much prefer working with communities in like long-term protection with them. In this case, it just wasn't possible. It was going to get sold to someone, so it's better than us. We've now given the land to a local NGO who's going to hold it in perpetuity for us. And we have now actually built our own wall around our section of land to make sure there's no encroachment on it. So this site is now safe, which is a huge win for this species. The other cave further down the south is really threatened by deforestation. These limestone caves are really susceptible to any change to the ground cover because water can go through the ground and get into the caves a lot quicker when you don't have all this vegetation on top. The communities realistically have zero option apart from harvesting the wood because they need to survive. So one thing we've been doing is working with the communities in really empowering them and figuring out more sustainable um, agricultural methods to make sure we can protect the land and make sure we protect their livelihoods as well. And like the one of the first photos I showed you of all the communities, they have really leapt to the cause. And the first time I went to Kenya, I saw a lot of bare land and a lot of exposed rock where all the topsoil had been washed away during some of the rainy seasons. I believe we're just shy of planting about 10,000 trees now in this area. We've got a greenhouse of almost, I think, 30,000 tree saplings, providing not only saplings for our project, but also saplings for other reforestation projects in the area, really accelerating this work because we really can't afford to keep losing all this topsoil. Now, I've been to Kenya twice now to this field site. The first time I saw it was really this rocky open area. I actually didn't recognize where I was when I got out of the vehicle the second time around because the speed in which the landscape is recovering is just truly remarkable. And we're having retention of topsoil. Everything just looks healthier. And we're working with the community, and now they're actually forming their own green business enterprises by selling these additional saplings as a form of alternative income for them. And yeah, here's one of the tree nurseries, and we've established some water tanks to make sure there's water security for it all as well. Now, Kenya is still a very much ongoing project, but just in a really short time, this project's only been 2.5 years. Through dedicated sort of time and attention, we really have been making a huge difference for the bats, the landscape, and the communities um, who are really protecting this cave now. Last project from Africa, I'm getting close on time as well. So I really want to recognize Livingstone's fruit bat. This is one of the largest. This is actually a flying fox, but it's called a fruit. It's one of the its name is the fruit bat. One of the largest flying foxes in the world. This is a phenomenal species to watch. It's so big, it kind of glides sometimes between swoops. I have not been fortunate enough to catch this bat when we were trying to stick GPS tags to look at their range across the island of Comoros. Instead, I think it was just mocking me. It was just flying around the net, flying over it, and just kind of circling around and looking down at us. In the hand, though, it's a phenomenal bat. But it was classified as critically endangered because the population was declining. Their habitat was at risk because a lot of farm land was just excluding these big trees that these bigger bats need to hang by. And it was just this constant erosion of habitat. Now, BCI really came in and provided the technical support for Dahari, which is the in-country NGO we're partnering with. They have set up a phenomenal monitoring network to carry out some really thorough and detailed monitoring programs for the bats. And they've also been working with the farmers to make sure they don't cut down any more trees. Now, when I was there, the sound of a chainsaw was just constant. They're providing subsidies and doing more sustainable agricultural practices that really encourages shade tolerant crops to protect these trees that the bats use. Now, I'm super excited to say that because of all the monitoring, we have shown that the population is no longer in decline. Because of the ongoing restoration work, we know the habitat is being protected. And the IUCN provides a category 4 species. So Livingstone's was up here on critically endangered. It doesn't get any worse than this unless you're extinct in the wild. So it really was on the brink. Now, through this ongoing work, they, and this is within the last month, has now been downgraded to endangered. Now, this really does show that continuous efforts and dedication can really make a difference and turn the tide on what these species are facing. So this is a huge win for us, huge win for Dahari, and a great story in how bats can uh, be protected and recover. Right, last region, then we will be able to take some questions. Again, Asia Pacific is just too big a region for me to talk about everything. I have got my, and I'll minimize, but I can show this to everyone later, but I have my State of the Bats for India mug. Now we're ongoing identifying the threats and opportunities in India, which is a monumental challenge because of all the bats in India and the different habitats that India has. But the team of bat researchers and coordinating by BCI staff has been phenomenal in gathering the information we need to really highlight areas of concern and where we can prioritize our work. But for this, again, focusing on success stories, I want to just talk about Fiji. Now, this work would not have been possible without the National Trust of Fiji and Nature Fiji um, really leading this on-the-ground work. But this is the last known maternity roost for the Fijian free-tailed bats. If this cave got destroyed, we really would be looking at the last sort of steps until the extinction of this species. This cave was under threat. There was a logging road that was going over the top. This cave is not the most stable in the world, so additional vehicles keep going over the top would really set it in decline. Through Now, this project has been going on for over 10 years now, and through early efforts, we have to thank Mike and Emily for doing the initial cave map to really highlight where this cave ran to allow us to get the initial land boundaries set up. So BCI and the Rainforest Trust provided the funding for the National Trust of Fiji to purchase this land and hold it in perpetuity to make sure that there was the legal and regulatory requirements to stop anyone building roads and going over this. Now, the local village, the Nagathangi village, have been instrumental in helping us protect and restore this land. So we've really allowed them to be the guardians of this cave. But I also give a shout out to um, our habitat protection restoration subterranean teams for looking at watersheds, looking at what habitat management was needed. And this is a handheld LiDAR scanner. This allows us to get a 3D image of the cave, which allowed us to really show how deep the cave was compared to the top in some parts, and also how shallow it was at some parts as well. We've been using this with great effect in many countries around the world now. It does get pretty fun. Jason, Nate, and myself had to wade through the water, which had endemic shrimp and eels in it, which was fun walking around with them, passing around your legs. But to get all the imagery we needed to really set up this map to really highlight, especially really vulnerable areas that need to be protected. But again, this is a really circular theme that we could not do this without the community support. And the Nagathangi village realized the importance of this cave and through the work, and I really have to give a call out to Sema and Sateri for leading the on-the-ground research and Jonah as well for leading the liaison with the community and making sure they were always informed of what was going on and the importance of the species. We were able to, as part of the project, the National Trust of Fiji got the government to build a water tower for the farmers so they didn't have to extract water from the cave, which was important for water sort of security in the cave and keeping the microclimate stable. I've been blown away by every time I go to Fiji, just how much people have embraced this bat and how much they want it protected and how much last time I was there, we were all planting trees as part of an area where deforestation had occurred in the past. And again, using the bat as this umbrella species for protecting the environment as a whole, and all the other species benefit from that as well. So again, I really want to, not just for Fiji, but for all of our projects, we could not do this with our communities and partners we work with. Now it is 12:36 my time. The image on the left was taken when I was working in Rwanda. This was, I think I was pulling 18-hour days when we were doing the radio tracking and catching. But again, you might be celebrating that I'm going to pause right now and allow questions, but this is just another instance. We could not do what we do without our friends in Jamaica, and this is one of my favorite photos of everyone involved in this project, young and old, that's been involved in this. Now, I'm going to leave the last slide up a little bit as a little bit of self-promotion with uh, if you want to learn more about the work that the endangered species team are doing, we have just released some videos. You can either use the QR code here, just scan that and it'll take you directly to it, or it's batcon.org /nightwatch. We have dedicated videos for Jamaica, Fiji, and Kenya that has videos such as this and really giving you a bit more context with the work that we're doing, some of the partners we're working with, and please enjoy the just natural beauty of these bats because we just love to share it with you as well. On that note, I need to finish with this species. This is Centurio senex. This is from um, Central and South America. This is a fruit-eating bat that has no fur on the front of its face. It's often called the ugliest bat in the world, but I kind of find it quite cute. And this is me just feeding it some sugar water before I release it. So that I think I'm going to turn over to Karen and Rachel being monitoring any questions and comments. And yeah, thank you once again for inviting me and putting up with that whistle-stop tour of what we're doing around the world.
And we had some great questions coming in. The first one, Teresa asked, how much has climate change affected bats?
Well, good question. We don't know is the quick answer, but it is impacting bats. So I mentioned bat boxes recently. There's been work up in Canada just showing how extreme heat events have been punishing bats that use bat boxes. And that's just the ones we know of because we can monitor bat boxes. We have no idea what's happening in trees or in buildings. It's really these extreme weather events, whether it's hot weather events, drought. We're doing a lot of work. Our Habitat Protection and Restoration team actually doing a lot of work in the US Southwest to do watershed management and restore natural water features. In Fiji and actually all over, tropical cyclones or hurricanes are really impacting bats, and the size and severity of those are really hitting them as well. Comoros got hit by a cyclone a few years back, and they normally never get hit. Same with Fiji. So the trouble is that there's just so many ways that climate change can impact bats. It's really hard to talk about it in any specifics.
Betsy asked if we're doing any work in Cuba.
Not actively. Previously, we've actually been supporting it with advice, some of the work that's been going on there. Cuba's got a great bat community with additional support from other colleagues from Canada as well. So from my perspective, there's just too many places to work, but we really respect and value all the work that is being done by other partners. And in Cuba, that's one country where there's really good work being done. We are trying to grow our Caribbean initiative and really just knowledge sharing. The work that we're doing in Jamaica is phenomenal. The work that Cubans doing is also great. I think the more that we can learn and share what each other's doing, we don't have to recreate the wheel. We can do everything more effectively and efficiently.
Erin wants to know if there's any folks working with bats in Nebraska or Iowa. Do you know anybody?
Oh, that part of the US is not my area of expertise. We have active white nose research going on. We have our North America bat um, monitoring program, which is through acoustics. I would say check out our website would be the first port of call, and if failing all else, you could always just message our um, communications page to double check.
We had a couple of questions coming in also through the Q&A box. How many bat species are there?
Right, this is a fun one. When I first started studying bats, the answer was 962. When I started doing my PhD, it was around 1100. Now we are over 1400. I think we're over 40. I think we're over 1450 now. Um, I have actually been part of a team when I was working for BCI for our project in Guinea. We actually contributed to that number. We discovered a new species of myotis. Um, I should say discovered new species to science. All the locals knew about this orange bat. No one else. It just hadn't been described yet. But I think it's a really good example of just in like 20 something years, it's gone from just shy of 1,000 to 1,400 and something odd. There's still way more we need to know about bats. The technology has improved, the way we can capture bats has improved, but there's still more we need to learn about them.
We also had a question about fruit bats, asking what do they eat, knowing that they eat fruit, but like, is that all that they eat? Are they only fruit?
No, it's predominantly fruit, I think is the best way to say it. And it will depend on the species, but we have seen that, especially during like pregnancy, some of the fruit bats will go and eat insects for extra protein. So insectivorous bats tend to stay on insects, but frugivorous and nectivorous tends to have a little bit more plasticity depending on where they are in their reproductive cycle.
What is the most common reason of endangerment for bats?
Us, humans. Um, it really depends where it is in the world, though. But it is habitat change. Bats can be adaptable. I mean, Florida's bats are using bat boxes after all, and they were tree roosting species. The problem is the speed in which we are altering habitats is outpacing the rate in which any animal can adapt. So anything we can do to reduce that or at least protect really critical areas for bat, and I mean, I'm just talking about bats, but I mean, this just goes for any wildlife as well. Um, the safer that communities will be.
How does one become certified to handle bats directly?
I don't think there's a certification project per se. I mean, it depends where you are. I think that's probably the best thing to. In many countries, bats are protected. Uh, from a UK perspective, for example, all bats are protected by law, so you actually have to get a bat handling license. And through that, you would have to work with local bat groups and get experience in handling and training. Um, yeah, so finding local groups, especially local bat groups, if they are in where you are. I appreciate we probably have a global audience, but trying to find people who are working on bats, looking for academic research, seeing if the opportunities go out in the field with them. To be honest, a lot of it is just practice. I mean, I've kind of lost track of how many bats I've handled, which allows me to go to different countries and apply for the permits to just be able to do this. But um, yeah, find out what's going on locally. I think is the best answer I have.
Speaking of handling bats, JB wants to know if Florida bonneted bats are as soft as they look.
Um, Before I answer that, I should say, just from a health and safety point of view, if you ever see a bat on the ground, please do not touch it. Because I handle bats, I have rabies checks every year. There is a very, very, very small, as in minute chance that bats will carry a rabies or rabies-like virus. Now, I've handled thousands of bats, but I tend to handle the healthy ones who are in caves and trees or flying around. The ones that the general public find on the floor, dehydrated, confused, are the ones that, to be honest, are more likely to be ill. So whatever you do, do not handle them. I would recommend you get like a cardboard box, stick that over the top, stick a sheet underneath, and then phone a veterinarian and ask for help. Um, but to get to the actual question, sorry. Yes, Florida Bonset, that's they're really fluffy and they have the best coats.
A question from Social, is it possible to get involved with Bat Conservation International through volunteer work?
Uh, I would say the agave restoration program is probably the program that has the most um, availability for that, check out where in the US we're doing it. Sometimes we do agave plantings. Because we work, as in the endangered species team works on really endangered species, we don't tend to have volunteers just because of the sensitivity. We actually try and limit the number of times we ever go into bat roosts, the number of times we even handle bats. I I tend not to handle bats anymore or even try and go into caves. And if I do, we tend to go in after the bats have all emerged. So within our team, there's very few options, unfortunately. We do try and involve the communities to make sure that we aren't just going in and telling no one else. So we make them understand why we're trying to limit disturbance. Um, but yeah, ordinarily there's fewer options. But I would recommend seeing if there's local back groups is probably the from more of a local perspective.
Kai wants to know if we or if you work more with GPS tags or radio telemetry tags.
We do. I mean, with Flood Wanted Bats, we just used GPS tags. We were using GPS tags on the um God, I've forgotten its common name, but Leptonictus nivalis, one of the pollinator species that ranges from Mexico to the US, the Mexican long-nosed bats. We had GPS tags on them as well. We we try and blend science with conservation. Ideally, we don't need to do the science part because we can rely on other work that's already been done. We can harness that and really do conservation implementation. So we really do a scan in the gaps of knowledge. And if we need to, we have the experts. We have a whole science team as well. So our science and conservation team worked on Florida bat projects. Again, we had GPS tags on Livingstone's bats. So it really depends on the need. Ideally, we really don't want to handle the bats, so we use it only when we need to.
I have two questions that are a little bit related. So, one is what is either your personal favorite bat comeback conservation story or just conservation comeback story in general? And related is what's been the best or fastest recovery of a bat species after interventions?
It's a tricky one.
Yeah, these are great questions.
These are really great questions. The problem with bats, and this is one of the reasons why they can get so endangered, recovery takes a long time. And these bats tend to give birth only once, maybe twice a year. So population recovery is actually really slow. So that there's no quick response to that. What we can do is really halt the decline. And I think some of the examples, Flodder's bat has to be one of the best examples we have in those bats were really hanging on to the edge of habitats in Miami. Even when I was in Miami for a meeting, we got called out to a project where a church had to get their roof repaired. Like it was leaking. All these roofs were kind of built at the same time. They were there and they were sort of all failing at the same time. Florida bats are such a cute but slightly dumb bat in a way, in that if they get disturbed, they'll just hide. They won't fly off. They'll just stay quiet. So a lot of times people don't know they're there until they've really stripped off half of the roof. But providing these alternative habitats that sometimes are actually better than their current ones, we're getting all these bats to move into these protected sites, which is really helping us um, protect those. So Florida water bat's a really good one. From a habitat perspective, I've just been blown away by how quickly the habitat has improved in Kenya and how resilient habitats can be if we just give them a little bit of TLC. I forget there were two questions. Have I answered? Kind of got lost.
I think so. Um, Aisha asks if there's anything particular that makes it easier or harder to work in any one country.
I don't think so. I mean, we are very conscious that we are a US based organization. We want to respect local cultures, local knowledge. And to be honest, one of the key things that we can ever do coming into a country is just sit back and listen to the concerns. We know the issues for the bats and we know what has to be done for the bats, but it's just understanding why the situation has got to where it is. So I never really see things as challenge. I just see them as more of an opportunity. And one of the joys I would say of my job is that we get to work in all these incredible places around the world in meeting, I mean, communities who just have so much love and respect for for their homes and how with a little bit of support that they were not getting previously, we can help them and really empower them to manage their own area that protects them and the bats as well.
When photographing bats, is it safe to use flash?
No, not really. We with the caveat that we use flash for a lot of the photos that I've shown when we do emergent surveys, we have a really limited period in which we'll use flash to just try and get the images of the bats because some bats are really hard to determine via echolocation. So actually, these images are a really good survey tool for us. But they don't like it. They and some bats, like the Jamaican flower bat, is really light sensitive. A tree came down and there was light spilling over from the road, and it was delaying their emergence time. So we had to erect a screen to do that. So some bats are really more sensitive than others. It's a little bit startling for them. I mean, I would say, depending where you are, the species, like, the odd flash is fine, but the trouble is, if you're doing it, you don't know what other people are doing. So ideally, I recommend people don't, just because you don't know the cumulative build-up and disturbance on bats, which is one of the reasons why I want to make sure that we as an organization, like we do this in a controlled, regulated way with government officials in these protected areas. So hopefully that there's we are causing minimal disturbance, but actually getting a lot of conservation gain from the knowledge that we get, and then we can share those with others who can experience the joy of bats as well. I should also say it's expensive to get the photos that we do, so we have a limited number of setups we can use around the world.
Katie asked a great question that speaks to kind of how we work within these communities that we work in. How do you go about explaining to local communities the importance of bats on their local ecosystems?
We don't always, I have to say. Um, well, we are really passionate about bats. Communities really are passionate about surviving and thriving in the area that they call home. If people are interested in bats, we will start to provide them information. If they're not, that's fine. I mean, there's a reason why we call the Agave Restoration Program, because it's really more than just bats. It's protecting whole landscapes. Now, saying that, the more that we hang out with locals, especially a beer in the evening, and start getting out my phone and just showing images, because of the images that you see, I mean, bats are just addictive in learning more once you start to see the diversity of them. Now, I was working with Kristen in Mexico a few years back now, and there was this landowner who was like, there are no bats here. We set a camera trap up by one of his blooming agaves. The next morning, we showed him the bats coming in, swooping and drinking the nectar out of his agave. He was blown away. He's like one of the best bat advocates now. So a lot of it is, I mean, we never want to force the issue. If people want to learn, we have the images and stories to tell them. But again, part of it is just being a good partner with a lot of these people and just sharing the information as of when they need it.
Calvin is a master's student doing a study on ecological disturbances and their effects on cave-dwelling bats. Um, can you speak to like how to balance cave tourism and minimizing those disturbances to cave-dwelling bats?
Yeah, and ecotourism is a big challenge, especially with caves. We're trying to actually do a strategy on this right now, but some caves don't have that many bats. Some caves do. Some caves only have bats in one portion. So I think again, I always hate being that person that says you just can't do something. We're always looking for alternatives. So there's like St. Clair Cave in Jamaica. That one is just so important. We just can't touch it. But what we can do is a bit like Bracken, have a view and experience, so people can see the bats coming out. Other caves, we can kind of provide cave maps where areas of minimal disturbance. Um, so people could do cave tours during those sections during the day, and at night everything gets turned off. You can also like switch it up by using like red lights, have people with more cave helmets and headlamps. So there's a number of ways you can balance ecotourism with bat conservation. It's just recognizing how important each site is and working with those people to manage that.
Let me see. I did post, somebody asked about a link to watch more bat videos. And so that is batcon.org/nightwatch. That really goes into our work in Jamaica and Fiji and Kenya. We are just about out of time, Jon. If people have more questions, how do they reach out to us?
Oh, that's a
I can
question I would
answer
ask
that.
you.
You can reach out on our website. There's a contact us form, or if you're on here and you um, want to put myself in danger, if you want to reach out directly to me, you can do so, kkimball@batcon.org, and I'll try to get you in touch with the most appropriate person. In the meantime, have a wonderful Endangered Species Day. I hope everyone is doing something to kind of help the endangered species in their area. Um, yeah, thanks everybody. And thanks, Jon. We appreciate you talking about all this work and all the work that you're doing around the globe to help these animals.
No, you're welcome. And yeah, thank you for everyone for listening as well. It's been great.